Good morning, friends, and welcome to the Wednesday LiveStream from Dulcimer Crossing. We are at the very end of August. Can you believe it? It's exciting when the seasons change as they do, and when we're in that time kind of in between seasons. There's a little openness. The fall calendar hasn't quite started for many of us, or it has begun starting but isn't completely starting. And I enjoy the time. It's also a dangerous time for me because when there is some space in my life and schedule, I'm tempted to fill it up with a lot of stuff. And so one of the things I want to do is I want to take today to talk about focusing. Focusing our attention is a skill. I mean, some of us may have a predilection toward being able to focus what we're doing with our time and attention, and it becomes more of a challenge when there's a lot to do. And let's see, I'm keeping an eye on my Facebook page to make sure I see anything that anybody writes, and it's acting wonky. There, that looks better. Okay, so now I just got to turn off the sound. There we go. Okay, so I have been focusing in a couple of different ways. I've been focusing on getting workshop titles and descriptions and all that ready for the Quarantine Festival that's coming up. I'm finishing my summer classes that had a break in them because I had my knee surgery, and this is the last week of those classes, but I'm also preparing the fall classes. So in my brain, there's a lot of things happening as I focus. But what I started doing over the weekend was I grabbed my Aaron O'Rourke Faster, Cleaner, Better book, which I highly recommend. Collection of exercises and etudes from mountain dulcimers. You can also hear Aaron play them, which can either be inspiring or dismaying, depending on your attitude at a particular point. But one of the things that doing this, one of the results of doing this for me, and let's take a look overhead. I'm tuned 158 to DAD tuning right now. And because of what I'm going to do, I better put my strap on because I want to be certain. And I'm going to move my microphone out a little bit. Here we go. And let's hide you. Okay. One of the things that I've been learning from what he does is he uses a lot of his pinky. I don't use my pinky very much at all. Erin May is someone else who uses her pinky a lot. I do a lot because of my wide hand with my ring and first finger, leaving the second one out sometimes and sometimes putting it in. But because that means the pinky doesn't get used when it's up here and there's it means I have to kind of tilt my hand funny. And when I start using my pinky, all of a sudden it gets very easy for me to put my fingers right behind the frets and get clear tone when I'm playing these arpeggios, which is part of what Aaron's known for. He calls it sweep picking. For a long time, I thought he meant sweet picking, like sweet picking, but sweep, like shoo, with the broom, which is when you're just sweeping your pick across the strings. So I've been spending a good amount of time because those are a lot of the exercises that are in this book. But I've now gotten to the place where he's talking about building speed with hammer-ons, and this is something I've been doing. I've been doing a long time. And I did it with my ring finger, and now I'm learning it with his pattern. And we're doing hammer-ons on the way up, and we're doing pull-offs on the way down. And then we're going to take a look at pull-ons in a different exercise. But by isolating and focusing on one particular technique, and for me right now, it's making use of my pinky, doing a lot of different things. So by focusing my attention on them, it's not saying that other things aren't important. It's just saying I want to develop my concentration so I can do that. I can do those things comfortably in a new way, because I've got a way that I've done it for a long time, and it works fine for what it does, and it has limits. And one of the things that I think is important is knowing where my limits are, and then seeing if I can find some ways to push those limits if possible. Now, I'm rehabbing my knee since my surgery. I'm not supposed to be pushing any limits, but I am supposed to be bending. And so for me, who it can be generally like a bull in a china shop and just forge ahead, it's important not to be cocky and hurt yourself. It's important to push and challenge yourself. And that's a delicate balance. And so my focus has always got to be on which part of me am I accessing right now? Am I accessing the I'm going to do it, I don't care what? Or am I doing it, let's be wise about this? Now, being older means I'm trying to learn to listen to the wiser part of this a little more. When I was younger, it was like, hell's bells, I'm not gonna worry, I'm just gonna go. And that produced injuries, which are lifelong and lasting. Part of the reasons I needed the surgery, because the coaches in the football team were always saying, sell out, and if you don't do that under control, if you don't learn to focus so that you can do it under control, you can hurt yourself. And when it comes to playing music, we don't want to hurt any of the things we need in order to play music. So where this helps me is it's not just instrument specific. Doug, you're saying that on banjo, you were able to do them pretty easily. And it could be that the action of your hand coming toward your thumb is what made that a little more easy, or you had gravity helping as you pulled off to the side a little bit. And hammering on this way is a different kind of an action, much more like a piano action. Or some people have told me my fingers look like spiders on the fretboard, which I kind of like. But let's turn our attention to the hammer dulcimer, because the same things are important here. I gotta get myself over here a little bit. There we go. So my focus is gonna right now I'm going to talk about, this is a class I'm going to teach at the Quarantine Festival. It's called Look Out for That Bridge, because if I start with my left hand and play in a box, which is the way I've learned to play, it makes the bridge crossing very easy because the next hammer is ready to cross and there's no hammers in the way. If I try to do the same pattern starting with my right hand, I've got to get this hand out of the way so I can get under it. And coming back down, I've got to cross over and get a hand out of the way. Now, it's not impossible to do that. It's just smoother if I go up 4, starting with left hand. But what if I accidentally start going up? Because that note is doubled, I can change where I make the bridge crossing. I can go up 5 on one side and cross over with the hand that's ready to cross, and then come back down. Well, what happens if I accidentally go up? Oops. So I have 3 different ways that I can play that major scale just by, depending on which hand I start with, left in 4, right, 5 and 3, left going up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I could also start on the bass bridge. So I've got now 5 different ways I can play the exact same pitches and cross between bridges and across bridges. How do I know which one I'm going to use? Well, before I make the decision about which one I'm going to use, I want to be clear about what I'm doing when I'm doing it. So starting with my left hand in the box, starting with my right hand. Oh, I got to go one more. Now it's time to cross over. Starting with my left hand going. I could reach over like this, but that B is right here. So it's 1 on the bass. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 8, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And I can go up one way, I can come down a different way. It's my focus on when all of these happen that's going to make the difference in which one is going to actually work for me best. So developing my focus is really, and I like seeing what Aaron wrote in his book here on a different set of exercises. I always tell the story of when I was trading mountain dulcimer lessons for bagpipe lessons, and my bagpipe instructor, who was my mountain dulcimer student, she was saying, well, she took bagpipes from a competitive winner who would say you need to do your exercises 100 times without an error. And it's like, I'm looking at her, my eyes as big as saucers. 100 times without an error. She goes, I don't want you to do 100 times. I just want you to do 20. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you may as well have said infinity. But here's how the focused attention worked. If I tried to do one, exercise, I could rarely play it cleanly. I could rarely play it right. If I tried to, and then I'd get discouraged, and I'd try to do 2, and I couldn't do the first one right, so then I despaired of doing the second one. But when I gave myself 5, when I gave myself 10, 15, and 20 to do, I let go of trying to do it perfectly. And I found out that when I'm working on 20, I can get 7 right. Interesting. So when I give myself a number that feels impossible of I'm going there, I'm going to do this exercise. So let's do this one. All right, I was doing a different exercise. That's the problem. It's triplets. If I go one time, I may get it. If I do 20, here's number 1. Didn't get it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. After I got over that initial hurdle, the other ones started to come a lot more smoothly. And that's what developing focus is to me. I'm focusing on, I want to get this technique, but I'm having trouble with it. When I focus so much on it, I'm going to give my brain another focus, which is the number of repetitions to do. I'm going to give myself what feels like an insane number of repetitions. And I only did 20, but I just want to say, Aaron writes, I suggest playing this 30 to 50 times through. So he's in between my bagpipe instructor and the competitive bagpiper, or at least until you can't get the tune out of your head. So it's not, and I've heard, I think Jim, you've talked this, I've heard other people say this. It's, you play it until you can get it right, and then you play it until you can't get it wrong. Because we're developing the use of focus is also helping us, create mylar, I don't know what it is, the sheaths that go over the neural connections in our brain so that it's hardwired and not with a thread, but now with a cable that's got a sheath on it, so that as we do the activity with our hands a lot, our brain says that's a lot of focus. I don't know if I can do all of that. But if we do it, and if when we start doing it, our brain says, I'm not sure you're going to really do this. So we're going to wait and see, adopts a wait and see attitude. So the first few times you try this, the focus is not going to be there. It's not going to be automatic. You can be guaranteed of that. But if you do it 3 times a day, 20 times, that's 60 in one day. If you do it that day and get up the next day and start doing it, your brain's going, wait a second. They did this a lot yesterday. That's 120 in 2 days. And if you do it in 3 days, that's 180. Just this one thing. By the time you get to day 4, 5, 6, and 7, it's starting to get a lot easier because your brain is saying, whoa, that's too much concentration. We've got to do things like breathe and modulate the temperature and, listen for the phone and all those things. So when we put our attention into this, our brains actually move it into they're going to do this a lot. Let's give them some storage space. Let's plug actual plugs into it and make it a hardwired kind of thing. And that's how you get to play so you can't do it wrong. And that's why when that happens, Glenn Campbell, despite the advance of his dementia, was able to play concerts on stage with his kids. And they would say, Dad, we already sang that song. He said, did we? Well, let's do it again. So the audience would say, yeah, go for it. But he could play the solos. He had done it so much that the focus was already built in. He didn't need the cognitive, turn my head this way. He had learned how to do that in such a way that now his body knew what to do. That's what we're trying to do when we're playing music. It's the same thing for singing. It's whatever it is we want to focus our attention on. If we put the attention into it at the beginning with a focused time and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, that's where we get to the place where we can do it and actually pay attention to other things. And it can become something that drops into a song. This little technique, it becomes a thing we can access while we're playing a different song. So that's what I have for us today. Now, we're seeing Jim and Doug are talking about playing bar chords on a mountain dulcimer, which I think is worth referring to. A bar chord, B-A-R-R-E, is like the dance bar in French. It's not like going to a bar and playing a chord, although you can do that. Let's move you a little bit out of the way now since we're over here. Bar chords are where you have one finger that covers all three strings, or three fingers, or two fingers, but all three strings are being covered. In my classic rock licks class that I'm teaching right now, today will be the final day of that class. It's a 6-week class. There are some songs like that. Iron Man. But there are others where it makes more sense to use three fingers, because then your fingers are available to join these three. So making a bar with three fingers, and then having your thumb and your pointer available to that lets me, with my thumb and finger, play a lot of familiar chord shapes while I have the bar. And some people call that a movable capo, because it's similar to moving your capo to a place, but it gives you access to the notes below. Aaron O'Rourke, just for reference, plays on an upward angle like this, and his fretboard is radiused, so that when he puts his pinky down to do barring, it's actually, it's really difficult to lay your pinky flat and then let your fingers move. But if your pinky has got a little curve in it like this, it can lay on the fretboard and give you that effective bar. And that's one of the reasons he advocates for a radiused fretboard, because of the style he plays. Erin May plays in a similar way, and her pinky ends up being a bar that's very useful for her. So, focus. The registration has opened for the Quarantine Dulcimer Festival, and let's see here. I'm going to go back one. This festival takes place at the beginning of October, and registration just opened for it. There are Hammer Dulcimer workshops. There are Mountain Dulcimer workshops. There's a lot of other instruments. Some of mine have sold out, the ones that are the workshops that have to do with Mountain Dulcimer for my first 50 tunes book from Hal Leonard. But I've got a Hammer Dulcimer workshop taking popular music, using those arrangements to develop arrangements for a hammer dulcimer. And that's something hammer dulcimer players get to do a lot, is what do I do to adapt this for my instrument? I just had a student yesterday ask me about that, because so often the arrangements that I was told they're purchasing don't have everything. They just have the melody line, and they don't know what to do to fill it out. And so that's one of the things that class will do. I have other workshops that are available, but there's 70 instructors, and there's over 400 workshops. And some of you may have already decided which ones you're going to do. I saw some reports from Doug and Jim that you're working on that, but registration is open for that. It's also open for the Southern California Dulcimer Heritage, who are doing a month long, instead of doing what they used to do as a weekend or day of workshops. they're doing a month of music, which I think is a real creative idea. So they're going to have hammer dulcimer workshops. These are taking place on 3 different Saturdays. They're going to do a Mountain Dulcimer Day with 6 performers and teachers all on the same day. They have some other instruments that are taking place on other days. They've got acoustic jams. These are in person. And Hammer Dulcimer jams. It looks like all the jams this time are going to be in person. And then they've got 3 different concerts that are taking place, or 2 different concerts taking place at different times. And registration is due 2 weeks before whichever event it is. And you can do that. You can see the schedule and click there to register. Also coming up is the Nutmeg Dulcimer Festival, which only recently announced that they're going to be back in person. And they're saying they're right sizing it because post-pandemic, a lot of festivals have been having a difficult time. So they're only having 4 instructors, and they're going to focus their attention on what happens best when people are in person and playing together. So Bing Futch, Tina Bergman, Dave Haas, and Timothy Seaman, two workshops for each instrument, mountain and hammer dulcimer. So they're narrowing their focus, and registration for this festival opens tomorrow. And they're just doing a 1-day thing. In the past, they've done 2 days. So they're adjusting the shape of their festival. And that takes place the very beginning of October. And there's one more that I want to call attention to that I'm aware of. There are, I'm sure, others as well, but Black Mountain Dulcimer Festival in Black Mountain, North Carolina. Well, there might be another one, right, Jim? But let's get this one pulled up here. Black Mountain is taking place on October 15th through 20th. So it's starting Saturday, going through Thursday. It's a longer festival, and they're having a lot of instructors like they have in the past. I've been hearing that a lot of the workshops are full, not all of them, but they're filling up. So if that's something you want to do, this would be the time to sign up for that. Beautiful part of the country, and beautiful setting. I've been to this part of the country. I have not been to this festival in the past, but I do hear from several people how much they enjoy that one. And then let's look for the one more that I know typically happens in this season of the year. Okay, yes, they are happening. So we've got festivals happening all the weekends in October. This one is going to be the very end of October, October 28th to 29th. And it looks like they may have everything ready. August 18th, everything's been updated for this festival. And it looks like this is going to be all in person. So they have Colin Beasley and Joshua Messick, Stephen K. Smith, Susan Trump, Dave and Nanette Lindsay, Irma Reeder, who's one of the hosts, Scott Reeder's one of the hosts, and Glenn Maxwell, and Michelle Spiro. I don't know how that's pronounced. I'm going to do auto harp. And so they're working on some other instruments, but that one is also ready to go. So there are several workshops in the workshop-rich month of October, and So those are things that are coming up. If you want to improve your focus, any one of those could be something that could help you. If you're saying like Doug is, I just got back from a 3-week trip. I'm looking to decompress. I need to focus by not participating in those things. I get it. I understand. Um, everybody needs to do the rhythms they need to do, and I'm glad that these people who do the rhythms of these festivals are doing them as well. Oh, one other thing I learned um, at the Valley Festival. Let's see if they're publicizing this yet. In Winfield, Kansas. I don't know if they've created this update to the festival yet, but the Dulcimer people focused focused artists are going to be John McCutcheon, of course. He doesn't only use dulcimers, but he does. And Mark Allen Wade, yes, they've changed it. They've updated it. So let's go and add that. Bing Futch will be there, but again, and Mark Allen Wade is going to be there. And he had a guitarist that he'd originally booked this with, but the guitarist wasn't able to go, and so Steven Seifert's going to be there. And I think this is he's been there as a featured performer with David Schnaufer in the past, but this time it'll be Mountain and Hammer Dulcimers together, and they're good friends. They're part of the people who put on the Quarantine Festival, and so that's exciting that they get to do that. That means a much higher representation of mountain dulcimers with 2 different performers featuring mountain dulcimer. So that's exciting, and that is September. That's coming right up, 14th to the 18th. This is the 50th anniversary of this festival. I had so hoped to go, and was going to be doing a workshop beforehand for the Great Plains Dulcimer Alliance, but then my knee surgery got scheduled, and it's too soon after, so I won't be doing it this year. But I am excited to hear from those who get to do it, and we'll look forward to getting back there in a future time. Well, that's what I have for us today, friends. Pam Bowman will be the live event workshop leader for us this month, and Dulcimer Crossing. And I look forward to seeing you again. If you have questions or suggestions for what to focus on these live events, please send them to me. You can leave a comment in the chat here if you're watching this later, or you can email me, steve@dulcimercrossing.com. For now, I'm going to say farewell.